Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am your host with my permanent guest co-creator, Cammy. Hey, Cammy, welcome back to your show. We missed you last week or 2
Hey
weeks ago.
Bryant, thank you for doing that. You were so good. Like if anyone hasn't listened to it, it was an
It was
amazing
fun.
episode.
It was really fun to do. Yeah, a little quickie, dewy one other. Yeah. And also, I finally have semi-perfected how to make like shorts on the desktop. I was gonna like tell you about that, but yeah, I made a short from our Bermuda episode, which still is popping on YouTube, the Bermuda Triangle one. And it was so much fun. But yeah, I did a short of that little fun story about the priest and the Miami yacht owner getting lost on the witchcraft, which sounds like a bar joke. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully pop out some more shorts of our content here. But the normal way the show goes is Cammy and I here pick a topic, a myth, history, legend. We give you a story of it. So Cammy is going to lead, or is going to give us a story in a minute, and then I'm going to lead a little discussion about it. We're going biblical today, which is fun. A little Indiana Jones too, because we're talking about the Holy Grail, which was really fun to look at because I think it's one of those things everyone knows about, but you don't really think about, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't even know that I really had the concept of what it was. I knew it was like something to do with the Last Supper and Jesus
Right.
drank out of this glass or ate off of this plate or
Yep.
whatever the grail happens to be.
Yeah.
And something about his blood getting in it. I don't know.
And then Harrison
So-
Ford picking it
right. And
out.
then
Yeah.
Harrison Ford finds it while all the Nazis are looking for the
They're too
gleaming
dumb.
gold stuff, right?
They're
And
way
he
too
just
dumb.
picks
They
up the
don't know
golden
it's made
cup.
out of wood. Spoilers. So, Cammy, you've got a great story. Let's hear it.
Okay, awesome. And my sources today were Monsalvant.no, Percival's Visit to the Grail Castle, FantasyFaction.com, Percival, The Story of the Grail Quest by Chrétien de Troyes, and several Wikipedia articles involving. Was that a terrible
Yeah,
pronunciation?
that's all right. That's all right. No, that's good.
Okay. um, Involving the Holy Grail and the Fisher King. Percival, looking for a quest to prove his worth, wandered on horseback through Britannia. A deer caught his eye, so he took aim with his bow and struck the beast. It bolted into the brush, and he followed on horseback, ever closer until it collapsed. He dismounted and stepped towards it, seeing a desolate castle and barren lands just beyond where he stood. He thought of the old tales of Anun as he left his horse and began walking towards a stream where an old fisherman sat, his line and pail both empty. The man called to him. "Son, I saw you down that deer. Come, I'll have my men bring it to the castle. Tonight, a feast." Percival followed him towards the castle, asking few questions, for he was always scolded for speaking too much. The man introduced himself as the king of these lands, and he told him of how he was wounded by a spear, and how since his wound the grounds of his castle were barren, the streams free of fish, the couples bared no children. So Percival was silent, not knowing the right words. The king showed the hunter, as he called him, his grounds fallen into decay, his once proud land and people hollow and lost, and after many hours of wandering the place, it was time to eat. The two sat at the table, while the venison was served on plates with aromatic writing. The young man intrigued, but he thought it rude to inquire, the king smiling and chatting while they ate. After dinner, Percival was eager to retire to his chambers, and the king showed him the way. As they walked, a few of the king's subjects were lining up, holding strange objects in their hands and carrying them from room to room. A spear carried by a single man, young and grim, a candelabra carried by two boys, handsome and pious, and the last object, a shining grail carried by a little girl with the purest heart. So the king described them, and a single question burning in the guest: who did this grail serve? He dared not speak, for he was always told he spoke too much. The image of the grail never left him through his sleep, though, and when he woke the next day, he found the castle empty, his host gone with all the artifacts and subjects that filled the halls the day before. He gathered his things and found his horse and left the castle walls, which closed by themselves and seemed to lock behind him. As he was leaving the barren land, he saw a girl who much resembled the one carrying the grail the night before. She spoke to him. "You could have saved the king, you know. With one question, you could have returned his vitality and changed the lands you see before you. But you were not worthy to heal the king, for you had only to ask one simple question. Percival hung his head and spoke softly. Who does the Grail serve?
Very well done. Cool. Yeah. And
Thanks.
that story, Percival, is like the oldest reference, which is I was kind of unfortunate to learn that. But it's like the oldest reference to the Grail, which this was published around, this was in the late 12th century, by Chrétien de Troyes.
Tway. Okay.
Yeah. Um, so that's I'll rip that Band-Aid off. I was really hoping some Roman, someone or other, some Byzantine dude would be like, here we go. Yeah, I'm a big Byzantine fan. That's the Eastern Roman Empire that continued on for many centuries after the fall of the Western half. And there are absolutely stories about having the cross, many artifacts, toenails of saints, Paul's left toe, like all that was, those artifacts were huge back then. But this really stems, the story of the Grail really comes from the medieval period, and it specifically comes from the like Arthurian legend kind of wave that was coming over, which we've talked a little bit about, and you had a great reference to Anun, the gates to the other world / the afterlife. It's a little hard to like discern, but yeah. So I'm sure the many of you know the English Channel is a very small channel, and when you cross it from the tip of England, you get into Brittany, France. Brittany means Little Britain. So for centuries, for thousands of years, probably, I'm gonna stick by that. People have been crossing the channel onto the British Islands, and these were a Celtic people that went back and forth. So and this, so Scottish, Celtic, Gaelic, Cornish, all this is in that same kind of family language. And after the Anglo-Saxon invasion, post-Roman stuff, all these people went down, and a lot, like they were either shoved into Wales and Cornwall and stuff, but many of them went to like France and Brittany and stuff. And just for some kind of reason, kind of having to do with William the Conqueror taking over 1066, there was an additional flight of people going, and it was weird. There, he was Norman, so it was kind of like a reconquest. But there was a lot of stuff going on in the court, so all these stories started popping up. We talked about King Arthur before. I'll kind of mention a little bit about that, but that's really where this story kind of popped up. Some facts about the cup. It's known to, it's either said that it was made from pieces of the cross, or it could have made from stone from Jacob's well. There isn't a ton we know of it, though. The word Grail comes from the Old French word Graal, which means chalice, which might be a word like from like Old Gaelic or Frankish kind of language, like Charlemagne's
It looks
French.
Gaelic, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the Graal word
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
else? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's usually like either super illustrious gold, or very humble stone or dish or something like that. It's said to, just like many other artifacts, it's said to heal, grant eternal life, provide enlightenment. People would go on pilgrimages, literally to see like Mother Mary's breast milk, like in a vial. Like, they would claim it, or the nails, rusty nails from the cross. Like that, these have these artifacts, and people would go and see and touch them and stuff like that. And especially of saints, they'd have they keep the pieces of the saints after they died, and they'd like spread them around and be like, "Oh, go see his spleen in this
Yeah,
abbey."
I've
And
seen a couple of churches in Europe that
Mhm.
they're like just very venerated, like the heart of so and so, which is more romantic than what I actually probably saw. It would be like
Yeah,
something
yeah.
completely gross, like the
It was,
spleen
yeah, it
or
was
whatever.
huge. So, but yeah, in 1190, I had it here. So yeah, de Troyes put this poem out. It's the earliest known reference. After that, 10 years later, we had a story by Robert de Boron called Joseph de Arimete. Um, it identifies specifically here in this story that it was the cup used by Jesus in the Last Supper. Then there was the Quest of the Holy Grail 25 years later by Wolfram von Eschenbach. That's another one that's very famously quoted, and lots of art is based off of these three. Here, there's also an anonymous poem called "The Quest del Saint Graal." it's a poem, anonymous poem, transforms the quest for the Grail into a search for a mystical union with God. I actually haven't read that, so maybe it's more of like a metaphor here, more like meaningfully a metaphor. I'm sure it is in general. But and then one of the last big stories was in 1470 by Sir Thomas Malory, which was prose work, which used the Quest del Graal into for English speaking readers. So these are the main primary sources of it. There are other works and paintings and things like that that were done, but that's really where we kind of get everything from. And again, this I like a quick little thing on Arthurian legend. This is the earliest 20th century is when we first hear of the Arthurian legend. Of these are Welsh poems and prose tales that sort of reimagined in the French court. Again, if you're in Brittany, like you'd be speaking Welsh and Cornish, those earlier languages, the Celtic languages, just as much as you'd be speaking French. And Geoffrey of Monmouth, who we've mentioned, Historia Regum Britannia, the history of Royal Britain, popularizes Arthurian legend in Europe. So there was this huge kind of comeuppance and stuff like that. And you know, you know, when William the Conqueror conquered, he had a bunch of these dudes from these mercenaries from Britannia, and they were like, "Yo, my great great uncle and grandpa used to live here, and you guys took it," you know. So, but for the Anglo-Saxons and the Danes that had been living there for hundreds of years, they're like, "Bro, I just been here. I don't know." So, it's kind of wild that it's a kind of something of England that we don't always think about. But yeah, so it's just really fun to think about that. And again, it was slightly disappointing that the Grail didn't have some like deep history beyond the 1190s. I was kind of surprised to see. We have another topic in Christian history that we're going to talk about, which was really deep. So I won't, no spoilers. That's next episode though. Double whammy on the Christian mythology. But this one was just kind of it was fun to see that it's basically Arthurian legend without Arthur for the most part. I can say, you know, it's just one of those stories that came around in that time. So yeah, I was kind of surprised. But that's about it. That's all I got. Do you have anything else you want to throw on top of what I've got, Cammy?
Sure. Do you know where the Grail is today?
Oh no, it's at a Goodwill in Idaho.
Right. So there's a church. I guess maybe it's a cathedral in
Sure.
Valencia, Spain, and it's supposedly
Valencia.
contains the Grail.
Yeah.
I've seen it actually.
And the nipple
I
of
don't remember what it looks like. It
Santiago.
wasn't very impressive.
Yeah. That's fun.
But
yeah.
I mean, it's just cool, you know, like they're like, oh,
Yeah.
this thing really exists. Here it is. And it's something that it wasn't even in the consciousness at any point until, like you said, the 1100s. So,
Right. Yeah.
but all of a sudden there's an actual object.
Yeah. It's fun how that stuff works.
Man,
yeah,
the Knights Templar are just, ugh.
Yeah.
In their search for it.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I think Indiana Jones is really what most people like, you know, like us, that's how they're going to hear about it. That's like our first introduction. Right. So, and it's pretty, that is like Arthurian in a nutshell, you know, like that is 100%, you know, like what George Lucas took his inspiration from. And I think it's really cool too, because in a lot of these stories, like I said, it's depicted as a golden chalice in some of them, but in others, it's straight up like it's, you know, Jesus was a carpenter, so they keep it simple. So, but I thought that was interesting. I mean, and those Nazis were so dumb. They had all that. I mean, they should have read Wolfram von Eschenbach's story, and I'm sure that would have given them enough. Anyway.
Well, the same guys also opened that huge
ark. Yeah.
Ark. Yeah.
And you gotta be patient with your arcs.
Didn't even shield their eyes or anything.
Yeah. My last thing is a plug. Once again, I wish I got some kind of ad revenue from plugging Mr. Bernard Cornwell, but he has a great series called The Winter King. I think I mentioned it when we talked about King Arthur. It is a series that is about Arthur. He is not the primary character. There is a Saxon who is the primary character, which, you know, we don't like Saxons at this period, especially because they're the invaders. But, and, you know, on Arthur is like Britain, you know, he's sure. That. But it's Arthur's one of the main characters, and the Saxon who you know helps him and stuff like that. It's a 3-part book series, really well done. I've only read a good chunk of the first one. I picked it up and I just put it down, but there is a TV show that actually just started airing. The first episode is free to watch on Amazon Prime. It's called The Winter King is the series. That's the first novel as well. And it is quite good. I really enjoyed the first episode. Sadly, the rest of it's on MGM Plus. So you gotta, that sucks.
All those streaming services that we don't
Yeah.
need. Does that
You
also
gotta
have
do more.
Indiana Jones though? Because maybe it would be worth it if you could watch
Right.
all
Yeah, get it
5
all out the way.
movies now. I don't.
One,
All
two,
2
three,
movies.
4,
That's how
5.
many you want to
Yeah, I
watch.
know.
With that.
Yeah, maybe 3.
I haven't
But
seen the new
yes,
one. Maybe it's good.
yeah, I've heard positive things, and that's the Winter King's been getting some fairly good reviews. Bernard Cornwell, he's such a good, bringing in things, making things look good, and making you feel the time period of this would be like the 4th century, I believe, is when it's set, which is when all the Arthurian legends set, 4th or 5th century, that area, and it's like post-Roman. So I guess they would have been gone 5th, 6th century then, I believe. So it's like the Romans came and went. So the Christianization is happening. You can see the struggle between paganism and Christianity in this, and really good series. I highly recommend you watching it if you want some authentic, good-looking show that Bernard Cornwell, he's always a great writer, and this seems like a fairly decent adaptation from the first episode. So I'd recommend checking that out. If you want to learn more about the Grail, watch Indiana Jones. I can't think of any other movies that really feature it.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and that actually, honestly, is so to the T the story. Like, even though it's not, it's like very tongue in cheek or whatever, but it is very, because this story, the story that was written by how did you pronounce him?
Chrétien de Troyes.
Correct. So he, so anyway, his story ends, and just that's it, right? And so there's no more to do it, and that's literally what happens in Monty Python, where they're searching for this object, and they're searching, and they can't, when they're about to reach it. So it's always just within reach, and when they're about to reach it, the police come and arrest everyone.
Right. Yeah.
So that's literally the story of the Grail.
Sure. No, that's real. That's a really good point. I can't believe I wasn't even thinking about Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yeah, it's been years since I've watched it, but yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. That is a great way to put it. Yeah. And then again, super, it has that, that fanciful, totally not the way things would have been in this time period, but it was in the 12th century, so yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, everyone, Cammy's back for this episode, should be back for the next. We've got another fun topic. We got a really fun lineup coming up, and I was jazzed about how well Bermuda did on YouTube. So please like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. Our YouTube channel is on a upward trajectory.
Maybe we'll monetize it eventually.
One day I can feed my child with this show.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully pop out some more shorts based off of our content too, to pull in some more listeners. So please, let us know if you have any topics that you'd like. And spooky Halloween season's coming up. That's always fun.
Oh yeah, we got to think about that.
Yep, yeah. Cammy and I will do powwows, figure out some great shows for y'all, and get some good content. But thanks for sticking around with us for what is most certainly now our 4th year, right? 5th year. We just talked about this. We're beyond that. Yeah. So
yeah, 4th.
So yeah, we are beyond 4th year. We're into year 5 now, technically. Yeah. So welcome, and we will see you all next time.
Oh.